Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Contagious Smiles Unstoppable. Here with the lovely, sexy Victoria, the vixen, and her two golden retrievers. And today we have a very special guest, former FBI agent Eric Robinson, current author,
Too soon to be released.
yes, to soon to be released book
That's good.
here in hopefully summer, October-ish. We'll see.
This year.
Yes.
Let's be safe. We'll say this year. Eric, thank you for coming on. I know you're super uber busy, but
I'm retired. I'm not super busy.
we do things different here. We're off the script. We just go with the flow. But what we're going to do different is I know you have been on so many interviews, and they go through and talk about everything that you've done, but I kind of want to talk about what this has done to you.
Sure.
What has this done all to you? So tell me, you have been a former FBI agent. You've seen it all. What has this done to you as a person now that you're no longer with the agency?
Well, there's things that you see as an agent that, in some ways, they're out there. Some things you find out that you did not know was out there. So it's a peek into how society lives with the criminals. And so how it affected me was I had to be talking to myself and talking to other like-minded friends. I had to remind myself that this is not humanity. These are criminals. We focus on criminals. So when you see the things that are disgusting and horrible, stomach turning, disappointing, okay, that's this person. And despite the fact that it's that person every time, every week, and that's what we check into work to look into, that's not all of humanity. And so it's nice to, in the midst of an investigation, running into some of the victims or witnesses who are normal people, to kind of cleanse that filth and say, okay, there's normal, decent people also involved in this too.
Do you ever feel like you can't turn it off, that you're still almost profiling people when you're having a conversation with them?
I don't know about profiling. I try to always be open. So when people would talk to me, I wanted to be curious. And so the idea of profiling means I have an understanding of who you are. So if I came into, even when I had the evidence and I know you're guilty and I can prove it, and I'm about to prove it in court, I always wanted to be open to, you tell me about you and let's see where this goes. And maybe that adjusts what I believe, and maybe it doesn't. We come back to, okay, I do know more about you. So as for the profiling, no. But I'll tell you this, the greatest thing I did in retiring is, and you could ask any agent, they would say, yes, that's true, is I turned in my bureau phone. And just having that phone on me all the time, texts at night, and informants calling, I had an informant calling me on Easter a year ago, and he's like, "Happy Easter, boss." I'm like, "Hey man, you're Muslim. You don't believe in this." And he goes, "Just be nice and say Happy Easter back." I'm like, "Okay." And there was the sound for the SWAT call out, because I was on the SWAT team for 15 years. The notification for our SWAT call out on the phone was this clanging sound, meant to make sure you heard it. But that sound is similar in, I think, like a Tide commercial.
Oh.
And I remember, here we are, 8:30 at night, sitting in bed watching TV, and that commercial goes off, and I just shoot up, and now I have a hard time going to sleep because thought I had to get dressed and run out and hit a door.
And you're ramped and ready.
I experienced something similar when I was in the Air Force, Eric, when they would play Reveille, at 4:30 in the morning. You first heard that click over the intercom, and your heart starts jumping. You get that adrenaline going because you know he's coming in yelling, and it's time for PT.
And it's not a major thing, but it's your body going, time to go. And my body's telling me time to go, and it's not. It's time to go to bed. I had Eric Church's "Creepin'" as my ringtone for probably 20 years. And so, I'm walking through the mall or something, and I hear Eric Church, and I'm like, I'm reaching for my back pocket. Like, nope, you're fine, Eric. That's just the radio now.
So the kind of piggyback off that, Eric, if you don't mind me, Victoria, I was law enforcement for 13 and a half years, and it's very hard for me to turn off that vigilant, to turn off that, perception, that awareness. Everywhere we go, both my wife and I are armed. We carry everywhere. And, one of us, usually me, depending on my wife.
You had to make the arm joke? Really?
No,
You
no,
did.
we sit with our
With your back
to
to the wall. Yeah.
right? And we watch people, even in Firehouse. We watch people, we watch hands, and we watch waistbands.
Yeah.
And we'll see a gun protruding, and hey, this person has a gun. Just be aware.
Yeah.
So it's something that's very hard for me to do.
Well, and I feel like a lot of that isn't negative as long as it's not keeping you from enjoying yourself. Like you feel like you've got to be ready to go as opposed to being aware. Being aware is great. It's better than walking into a restaurant and being foolish. And you didn't even have to finish your story. I knew the rest of your story.
Right.
That you sit with your back to the wall facing the door. And anybody who's been in law enforcement knows that. And that's why when you and I go to Panera, I try to get in first so I can beat you to that spot.
Exactly. Now you also pastored a church.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead and hide that one in the lead in.
Right. Let's just go. Woo! Was there ever a moment where your faith and your job directly collided?
No, I felt like in the FBI, we were always above board, looking to do what's right, proper. On the contrary, I felt that obviously what I did in the church was doing God's work. And then what I got to do in law enforcement was just a different side of God's work. I believe that God wants justice for people, and the church can only do so much in that regard. So this was, if done right, which I feel like we did, this was carrying out justice for people because the church can't bring people to that level. We can, give support, even raise money. But if someone who harmed your children is still out there, then you don't have that with the FBI. I felt honored that I had one job that had a noble position, and I got to move to another career that also still had a noble position.
What case still sticks with you today that you can kind of give us the vague overview of?
Oh, I don't have to give a vague overview. I can get right into it. The biggest case that I had dealt with a man named Mark Wittenmeyer who had stolen, by my estimation, $22 million from the people, largely from the Toledo, Ohio area. And the case sticks with me because I had worked it for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And it began with him, if you recall, back in the 90s, we used to bundle our long distance minutes.
Yes.
So you get a phone call and somebody would say, how much are you paying for long distance? I can get you 12 cents a minute. And kids don't understand it because it's all free in your pocket. But he was a millionaire back in the mid and late 90s from doing that legitimate work. Well, he moved on to other companies until he was working with MCI WorldCom, and that went bust. And so he moved into starting up new ventures. And every company he had was legitimate, but whatever investment came in to promote the company, he just put it in his pocket and then come back and say, hey, you win some, you lose. It's a risky venture. So he had taken that money over and over, lived a wonderful lifestyle, and people would continue to invest because the guy had multiple Lamborghinis. He's got a beautiful house. Like, he's clearly successful, but it was all their money. But by the time I started investigating him, he had moved on and ruined all of his companies, and now was working in a world where he was trading in foreign bonds that were completely fraudulent. And I found this world online where these people try to sell each other these bonds representing them, and they were worth $100 billion. And so he was to get just 1% of that commission. So making himself a billionaire immediately. And they were all junk. Mm-hmm. And many of them just had all the earmarks of, this is ridiculous. Like, it's sponsored by some prince of Brunei. And then some of them had legitimacy because they'd be like a Mexican railroad bond from 1900, but they'd said, oh, yeah, but now with inflation, this is worth $100 billion. And the whole world was that atmosphere was crazy because I spoke with one person who said, oh, yeah, I believe this is true. In fact, I had a client who owned a quad. And I said, what's a quad? And she said, well, a bond worth $250 billion. And I'm like, I don't know if there's $250 billion in all of the world. Like,
Good night.
Wow.
not one person doesn't have a $250 billion bond. So we ended up, after so many years, it took to finally this complex financial case to finally charge him. So that one sticks with me.
Mm.
Now, you have been across the table from many, many dozens of people. Was there any monster that really got under your skin and got to you?
No, I was able to set that aside. I'd worked plenty of cases against pedophiles, and a lot of folks would tell me, cops, civilians, whomever, I don't know how you do that because I just want to put a bullet in his head. And I think, yeah, but these guys are pathetic. Most of them confess because they hate themselves and they're as ashamed as I don't have to tell them that they're awful. They know it. And I could set that aside because I know that the best case is not me reminding them that they're disgusting. It's me getting them to make a confession and hopefully go beyond that and let us know if there are people that, victims that we don't know about that he's acted out on. So that was simple for me. I used a lot of what I had learned or practiced as a pastor in working with people. And so it wasn't tough for me to see this as a human being. And if they wanted to turn it on and be an asshole, like, okay, I can do that too. But until then, I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to treat you kindly. And let's see where this goes. So, I mean, the closest I got was one where I had arrested a gang member in Chicago and he got under my skin because he kept calling me short. And, and that was about it. But for the most part, these guys they broke the law, and my purpose was to come and to now bring them to punishment. I didn't have to make it personal.
So I did 4.5 years in jail, and I had to take care of these pedophiles, and they're all in isolation.
Remember what they want to be called now.
Oh, yeah, whatever. MAPS.
Have you heard that? They want to be identified as MAPS. We had a pedophile come on, and he identified as a MAP, a minor attracted persons.
Okay.
So,
okay.
My job as a correctional deputy was to take care of these inmates. The trustees would approach me and say, Officer Solomon, I'm getting tired of hearing these guys tell me how they lured these children into their whatever home or vehicle and the things they've done to them. Now, these trustees are coming to me telling me this, and you're a better man than I am, Eric. I tell you this right now, because one trustee, while passing out the dinner trays, the styrofoam dinner trays, said, Officer Solomon, I put a little something extra in his because I'm tired of him saying all the gross stuff he has done to these children. And, I turned a blind eye. I couldn't blame him. I'm a father of 3, but.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing because no matter how much I interacted with bad people, if I ever, whenever I was taking people into the jail, if I had a corrections officer who treated me kind of pissy, I'm like, hey, man, I can take it. You got to go here every day. And so there's a difference between me working up a case and like having a goal in front of me of getting confession and having to work among these people every single day. That would be very, very difficult.
Yeah. It's a whole different lifestyle inside the jail. And kind of had to conform to it as a deputy for 12 to 16 hours. And some of that shit you can't leave. It's hard to leave at the jail, or on the road when I was a cop. it's hard to leave it behind and not bring it across your threshold into your home, or vice versa, bring your home life into your work.
Well, there's a balance because you can't be completely immune to it, because if you are and you just harden yourself, well, then how do you how are you a loving husband and father? So, I mean, you can't live that way. And also you can't let it break you, because now you're useless to your family as well. So there's that balance of being able to accept it and properly judge it as that's horrible and not let it seep in any further. So
Right.
I don't know what the rules are for that, but yeah, the one significant interaction I remember having with COs is we had a bank robbery, and I was a new agent, and the bank was robbed after there was a call into a school for a bomb threat, and I was like, "Isn't that the plot of Die Hard 3?" And it is.
Right.
And they caught the bank robber really quickly because it was a bomb threat in July. But anyway,
No school.
no school. So we pick up the guy and we start transporting. It was a long drive, and I get a phone call from our switchboard, and it's the guy's attorney. They've already learned that he'd been picked up from the police, and they said, "Hey, I just want to make sure that you know he has auditory hallucinations," which made sense because he was acting very strange, like just chirping for no reason. And so all along the way, like he just was picking fights as if we were insulting him. And then we took him to the jail, to the lockup, and they had two guys who like together totaled like 13 feet tall and 600 pounds. Like these guys were big, and this dude was scrawny, and he just looked at the one and like started trying to wrestle him in cuffs, and they took him down like a sack of potatoes. And the next day we're going again. I'm a new agent. We're getting ready to take him into his initial appearance, and he's meeting with pretrial services, which is, they're a neutral party, and it's a woman, and he's just saying disgusting things to her. And finally she's like, I can't do this. And as we're about to take him in, I go to my boss. I like, hey man, we're leaving him in cuffs, right? And he said, yeah, we're leaving him in cuffs. And I said, I'll bet you $20 this guy's going to be held in contempt of court. So we take him in, he's in cuffs, so-and-so on behalf of the government. And then he says, I'm so-and-so on behalf of the defense. And the criminal had been like really pleased to see, like, this was a family friend, but he looked at this 70-year-old, like 5 foot tall guy, and in handcuffs, he cocks his head back and comes down on the bridge of his nose and busts him up. So I end up wrestling with him, got cut, had to get tetanus shot. And then right before they sent him away, the judge says, I'm holding you in contempt. I'm like, yeah, I win.
$20, let's go.
I had a bottle of Irish whiskey on my desk the next day.
Now, tell me, who was Eric Robinson on his last day with the agency versus who he was on his first day with the agency?
Oh my gosh. It's like, well, so I've been married. I say this, I've been happily married 27 years, 33 total, but you take some bad ones in there too. But my wife knows I say that. I am glad to be married to my wife, but I have so much more confidence now as a man. Like if I was 17 years old and I had the confidence I had now, oh, there'd be a lot of, guys looking like me around the world. But and that was the same in the FBI. I got in, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never handled a gun before. I'm trying to figure out, just how the FBI works. And by the time I finished, I'm like, okay, I'm the senior guy. I'm the one that folks come to if they have some questions or help. And I was always going to them too, even to the very end. But, having that experience along the way does so much. I'd been there on SWAT. Guys would ask me like, hey, what do you think you bring to the program? I'm like, I think I've been on 1,000 ops with you guys. So if there's not much we haven't come across that I haven't seen. And the guys were like, yeah, we've got some young guys on the team, and it helps having a sturdy presence. And I was glad to provide that. And at the same time, I'm still learning from the young guys.
Yeah. So why FBI?
People keep asking me that, and I don't know. Do you not realize the FBI is super cool?
I do know the FBI.
Okay. So
Cool.
you're just making sure that that's the reason.
Well, of course.
I had to leave the pulpit because I had stress-related headaches every day for 2 years straight, and I had to find a job with less stress.
So you went into
So I joined the
right?
FBI. Yeah. It just was less stress because when people came with problems in the church, I cared about it and I didn't find the mechanism to not burden myself with it. In law enforcement, if the bad guy got away, whatever, man, God or society will take care of him. Like we'll get it. And so the day I got accepted in the FBI, my headache stopped. That was definitely a cue that I'd done the right thing.
Hmm.
But I remember, so I had a good friend who tells the story of like, yeah, here's how I fashioned my schooling and my career and every step I did to get in the FBI because it was my dream job since I was 10. And I said, oh, I kind of did it on a whim because I thought it would be cool, and here we are.
I get asked all the time, so I'm gonna ask you, this is so like trivial. What TV show to you is the most relatable to the actual FBI?
Well, The Wire.
I've
That
never
was,
seen The Wire.
oh my gosh. Well, this is the greatest day of your life because you've got 5 seasons of television excellence ahead of you.
What about The Blacklist?
No.
No.
No, I enjoyed The Blacklist. It was fun.
Yeah.
But so my youngest kid would watch reruns of Criminal Minds. And so she'd put it on and she'd say, you get 5 complaints and that's it. And then you got to shut up. And I was I was done like 3 minutes in. Like, oh, like, yeah, honey, they can't go into Canada to arrest somebody with guns. That's an international incident.
No, I'm curious. People ask all the time, like, what cop show is really relatable to what y'all have done? And another reason I asked about The Blacklist is I'm super excited because, you watch The Blacklist. I love The Blacklist.
Yeah.
Is, the FBI agent Aram Moshbai. He is co-hosting with me on Friday. And so, yeah, I'm so super excited.
Well, that's great regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's a total gentleman.
Well, I used to say this when the FBI Academy show with Priyanka Chopra, it was
Never saw
on
it.
5-6 years ago. People would say, "Oh, is that realistic?" I said, "Well, I haven't seen it, but I see this hot chick getting out of the FBI pool, and I know it's not true because A, I didn't see a lot of hot chicks in the academy, and B, the pool was always closed."
You would think she's hot. Yeah.
Oh,
Easy grease.
You would
like
totally think she's
Nick
hot.
Jonas's wife, or
Yeah.
Nick
I
or
think
Joe.
so. She's
Yeah.
old. She likes younger men, so you have no luck.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Plus, you're married now.
That's right.
So,
Oh, there's that. Yeah.
well, yeah.
Happily married this.
This time, you're happily married.
This is my third go round, Eric.
All right, let's stick with this one.
Yes.
Thank you. See, thank you. See, so they can be faithful. Now, this is your first marriage, right? Your first and only marriage.
First and only, 33 years.
That's awesome. See?
I was 9 years old when I got married.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because, see, my husband always says on our shows that people in uniform, for the majority, they cheat. And I never cheated. Now, him, on the other hand, there's, my daughter who will walk around somewhere, she'll see a younger kid and she'll be like, "Hey, Dad, is that yours?" And like, she asks him all the time because, my daughter said he worked for the UN at one point, making sure to keep up foreign relations. Yeah.
It was Priyanka Chopra.
Next subject.
Next subject. Indeed.
It I don't know what it was, but my dad was, I don't know, say, my sperm donor, right? We're kind of estranged right now. He always told me, "Son, when you put on that uniform, it will be thrown at you."
But you have to have the power within to say no.
And I didn't have that power. I was in my 20s.
I was too.
And
but that also sets the tone when you have someone in authority in your life saying, "Hey, this is in a sense acceptable, and this is what's going to happen," and you get those.
Right.
those things modeled to you.
Yeah.
When I was the financial case I told you about, investigating this guy. So he had a trophy wife. She was like the Heisman of trophy wives. And so the subject would always tell people that I was banging his wife. So he knew I was investigating him because it was out in the open it was a financial case. So he was always telling people I was banging his wife. And then she divorced him, and then he married another woman, and then he started telling people I was banging her. And then she divorced him after 2 months and started dating a gal. And of course I was doing it with her too. And I was just having sex with so many women without the enjoyment of it along the way. And before we went to trial, our prosecutor said, "Hey, he's brought this up before, so I have to ask you." And this guy, he's now a Supreme Court justice for the state of Michigan, very straight guy and brilliant too. And he says, "I have to ask you if you've had any relationship with any of these women." And I just said, "Hey, a gentleman doesn't kiss and tell." And he could start getting pissed off.
Hilarious. Wow.
How did your wife how did she handle it during the time that you were active?
So so in the beginning, we were working in Chicago. I was there for 8 years, and she was always nervous about me going out because this is new. And I wasn't on the SWAT team, but I was investigating gangs and drugs. And so she was always concerned. And I was like, "Honey, I'm not going to get shot. I'm going to get hit by a car just driving in Chicago. That's the most dangerous thing." And by the time I'd been in it for a number of years and I was on the SWAT team and I'd, do these hits, and I'd say, "Hey, next Tuesday, we've got an op in the morning." And she said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, guy's pretty dangerous. Like, he's got homicide conviction already. He said he won't go back to jail." And she's like, "All right." And it's like, you never know what'll happen to me. She was like, "I put it in the calendar. What more do you want?" So it just completely changed.
That's awesome. So what is your suggestive tips for a successful marriage? You got 33 years, 27 in there that,
No, 33. Yeah.
What is your successful tips there for a successful marriage?
Well, I think starting out is understanding unspoken expectations. So especially in the beginning, I think you're going to do this and you should, and then you don't. But that's the way we always did it in my family or in my last relationship. So unexpressed expectations are a setup for an argument. And otherwise, it is being open. So my wife and I practice this. Number one is whatever you say, I believe that you are on my side. You're not out to get me. Secondly, if I even disagree with this, I'm going to suspend that and treat this as if it's true. So I'm going to be curious from this now and follow on. And then from there, I'm going to ask probing questions to get to a point. So rather than oppose, where you tell me something I don't like and I go, "Oh, yeah," and we're playing tennis, hitting our complaints back and forth, instead, we're going to play catch. You throw me something I don't like, and I'm going to catch that, and I'm going to work with that first. And we're going to solve this as best we can. And now I'm going to say, "Okay, now you catch this."
I have to ask, how has it been when your daughters, have they come home with a boyfriend or a partner yet? And they're like, because we ask our daughter all the time, who are you more afraid of, somebody you bring home meeting? And she's like, "Mom." So what's it like when they bring home somebody for dad?
Well, so my oldest is engaged, and they said, "Oh, okay, at first you were scary." But I don't know. I think I'm quiet. I don't, maybe I seem grumpy, but then like I immediately started engaging, talking about The Walking Dead. And okay, so now me and my oldest partner, now we're kicking it off. So I think it was a matter of me being open, and I never bought into that idea of like I'm here to scare the boys. Like that just makes things awkward.
Do you hear that?
Mhm.
Uh-huh. I'm
Uh-huh.
waiting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
But
You don't be
I've got a
awkward.
hole in the backyard.
But I'll tell you this, back in my days when I was pastoring, I was younger. And so one of one of the people in our church, their kids were teens, and they had a standard, both for the boy and the girl. So for the girl, if somebody wanted to ask her out, they had to go ask permission from the dad first. And that was an out in case she goes, Dad, I don't want to. So like, then you make it difficult or say no. And the boy had to show respect by going to the parents of the girl's house and say, hey, I'd like to go out. Do you mind? And I think that establishes some, maturity and ownership in what you're doing.
Absolutely. I have to ask, do you have the dumbest criminal story that you want to share of somebody?
Oh my gosh. The dumbest.
Because you seem like you're so much fun and you add comedy into everything. And so like I can imagine you sitting across from someone going, are you real? Are you serious?
Okay.
So
You put it that way? Yeah. So this is a short one, but when I was working gangs in Chicago, I'd arrest this guy named Dorian, gang member named Dorian, and he went by Doe. So this is me doing the interrogation. He's locked up. We got him in the cuffs, and I figured, okay, this is how you do the interrogation. I'm going to start with things he can agree with, and we're going to build from there. And so we had an informant buy drugs off of him wearing a pinhole camera on a button. And so I print out a shot of his face. And I said, let's start with this. Can you identify this person? Because that's going to be me saying, well, that person bought drugs off of our guy. So I slide it to him. I said, can you identify this person? He goes, nope. And I said, well, it's you, clearly. He goes, no, it ain't. So I take his wallet and I go, look, over the shoulder in this photo, it says 2242. On your driver's license, you live at 2242 West 15th Place. No, I don't. I go, the man in that photo is wearing a necklace that says Doe. You are wearing that necklace right now. No, I ain't. I don't know where to go. Now I don't know where to go.
right? You're like, I'm being pranked.
And that was the best defense he could ever have. I mean, better would just say, I don't want to talk, but he just like, yeah, I'll talk, and I'm just going to make you angry.
Right. Wow. It's just really, that's no. So I have to ask, your book is coming out. You have to tell us about the book. What is it about? What inspired you to write it? Will there be another?
There may be another. So I was getting near retirement. I asked my wife, what should I do? She says, why don't you write a book? And I thought, yeah, I always wanted to, but I had failed to write down stories through the years, which I had thought, oh, this would be cool. I'm going to the FBI. Maybe I should write this stuff down. And she says, well, here, try, see what happens. And I sat down and poof, like Taco Bell, too much. It's like too much fire sauce on that quesadilla. And, the stories just started coming because agents sit around when we've got time. And I'm sure it's the same with cops. Like you got downtime or you're waiting on an informant and somebody just like, hey man, remember that time? And we start telling stories. Yeah. And so, I'm like, oh, let me start with this one. The scene opens with this. And so what I did is I took investigations I led or I was a part of, and I tell how that went. And I put humorous angles to it because I was doing a lot of crazy stuff. And then through that, it's all in the lens of let's consider this social experiment. What would happen if you took a Baptist pastor who's never handled a gun and you stuck him in the FBI for 24 years, you made him a part of a SWAT team. Let's see what would happen there. And so it's that. It's these remarkable stories. I worked a couple of cases that were honored with the Attorney General's Award, which is, I think, the highest in the FBI. Don't look it up, but I think so. And so I got to do some crazy good things on the high level and then, small level, like rescuing teen prostitutes that nobody cares about or has heard of. Mm. And then after that, I put in an after action review, which is looking back. What did we do right? What did we screw up? How did this happen? And what lessons do we learn? And then also here's a couple other little silly stories that, maybe round out the case too. So it's, I think I think it's fun. And the feedback I've gotten from my copy editors and my beta testers and readers are like, hey, this is a fun book.
Have you got a title yet that you can share?
I do, and I can. It is called Irreverend, from saving souls to chasing sinners with the FBI.
I like that.
I'm
That's
glad.
really cool.
The-
What's
the-
your cover gonna look like?
It's shirtless. It's shirtless for the women because that's the number one demographic. Because guys are going to buy the book anyway.
Yeah.
So shirtless for the women. I'll get a good pump going first, and then So the glamour shots and everything are coming up in about a week or so, and so we'll see what fits for the cover. But the original title that I was working on, I just made it a chapter title instead, is From Preacher to Breacher, because I knock down doors.
I like that. Yes.
That's a good one too, huh?
Our daughter is wanting to do profiling, and there is in Atlanta, there is a serial killer exhibit, and my husband took her to that, and she was just enamored with all of it. She was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so cool." Like crazy, crazy. So she said, "Mom, you have to ask him if he ever did anything with a serial killer. I have to know the story. I have to. So I have to ask before, she disowns me."
Well, so yes and no. There was a man named James Worley in our area who killed a young woman named Sierra Joggin, and I've worked with their institute a few times to help promote kids to know how to keep themselves safe. And this was maybe 10 years ago when it happened, that he had attacked her while she was riding her bike and then killed her. And there's a likelihood that he had killed others before too. There was a police report of him kidnapping a prostitute and she got it away. So while he's not listed as a serial killer, there's a good chance that James Worley had killed more than one person. So if that's something your daughter can look up and get some information on, the Sierra Joggin Foundation is a wonderful group headed up by her family to keep her memory alive, but also to hopefully provide kids with knowledge of how to fight and flee if ever they're confronted.
Yeah. If you could sit across from your younger self before you joined the FBI, what would you warn yourself about and prepare yourself for?
So my younger self would speak first and would say, "Damn, you're looking good for 56. How do you do it?" For my younger self, I would tell me that you can go ahead and take that step into the FBI or whatever else it is, because the 2 years that I went through the stress headaches, they were every single day, and they were for most of my waking hours. And I kept pushing through it because I was getting to do what I had wanted to do in church, and we were successful. And I didn't want to take that step into saying, I got to move away from what I thought was my career. And then getting into the FBI, I would talk to myself early on and say, you're going to have a good time. Remember these things. The younger agents who came in after me, I would say, take pictures. When you're sitting around, when you're doing something cool, take pictures. Not evidentiary, but like to remember. Write stuff down. I found myself, especially later in my career, just pausing and just kind of trying to take things in, to be present and remember, this is awesome. I get to do this. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on how we can make the generations now safer? Because when we were in school, what was the worst thing we had to worry about? Who was going to get on the monkey bars? If we were going to get hit by dodgeball, we go in when the street light comes on. We never had to worry about active shooters or anything of that nature.
Well, I grew up I grew up when there were serial killers all the time. So yeah, we didn't have the mass shooters. It's tough because my kids went through school where there were shootings, and I had cases on a couple of people who would have been shooters. They would have killed people. And there's not much that we can do other than have people step forward and try to get intervention. So Gavin DeBecker wrote a book called The Gift of Fear, and that's useful in a couple of ways. And one thing he says is we're often reluctant to step forward because we don't want to look foolish. So I'm concerned about some of your behaviors, maybe some things you've leaked out, how you might want to hurt people or harm yourself. But I don't want to be that guy who, jumps the gun or makes you look bad or looks foolish, and people are afraid to take that step. And people need to then be the ones who will take that step and report, find help beyond, get the questions that maybe can unearth what's going on, but then bring in some professionals who can help out. And then from there, it's difficult because a lot of the laws don't allow, even the red flag type things, like it's hard to get guns away from people who might be a danger to themselves or others. So, and I understand the rights, stepping on people's rights there, but the opposite choice is we get a lot of people killed at once.
Do you have any idea why you think that the generation of our kids is so much more violent?
I think it just has become an option. So now that you see that, in a sense, starting with Columbine, that now people go, oh, I didn't know that was an option for me to have an outlet for my anger. I used to just, throw rocks at dogs. Now I can, we can go kill a lot of people and reset life or express myself in the greatest way possible. So now it's an option. And before that, I don't know that kids saw that as like, oh, okay, this is normative, something that people do when they're depressed, angry, bullied. Suicidal is, hey, we can go shoot a lot of people.
Yeah. Do you see that the parents are at fault for any of it? Because it seems like today everybody's like, here's a game controller. Here's a phone. They're not babysitters. They're, and they said, here, go do this. And people don't sit down as a family like they used to and have dinners and conversations and how's your days. And the video games we had younger is nothing in comparison to what they have now. I went downstairs and my husband's like playing some game where they're amputating, people and stuff like that. And I'm like, really? That's a little, don't you think?
You don't know that's not necessary? I think there's a lot that's there that contributes. And then you have cases like with Adam Lanza where, obviously the parents are culpable because they're, giving a gun to someone. But I had a case on a kid who was very likely to be a mass shooter. He was referred to me by NCIS, said, hey, man, we gave this guy a separation, but he is homicidal and suicidal. And then he started buying guns, and I got him put away for weapons under disability because he was institutionalized multiple times against his will, which that's on the form. And his father thanked me because he couldn't control him, and he knew the same thing, like, my son is likely to kill people. And he had even hidden some of the guns that we found during the search warrant, hidden because he trying desperately to keep his son from hurting people. So there's just times too where even parental involvement, like they're like, what can I do? Like my kid's bigger than me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of had a similar situation, but a little bit opposite. We moved in my elder biological father up here.
Mm-hmm.
I call him a sperm donor now because he basically disowned me while he was here. So he's no longer my father. He's my sperm donor. But anyway, at the kitchen table one night after he was very pissed off at us, he told us that he thought about suicide.
Well, he had also just overdosed the week before.
So, I went to his recliner that he was at, him being former Atlanta police officer, pulled out a pistol in the recliner that he was sitting in our home. And, later on we found 2 more loaded pistols in our home that, he did not have. And so, he said, I'm in a very dark place and I about ended it all. and he was angry at us for taking away his oxy, his all his
Or instructed
opioids.
to by his
Right.
medical team.
He was popping pills left and right and just abusing them. And then when we took control of him, it changed his attitude towards his own son, and especially my wife, who has 3 doctorates and
Thank you.
insanely smart. Did I put that out there? You have 3 doctorates?
Thank you.
And what are you up to? 54 books now?
It's about Eric.
Published author of 54 books?
It's not about you, and it's not about me.
You're his inspiration right now.
I'm not.
You cut me off. I was telling my story about why I wrote, and it was because I've read all your books.
See, there you go. All of them.
Okay, which is your favorite?
Probably the third one.
Which was what again? What was it about? Hush, Michael.
Prisoners of Azkaban.
Now, she would know that because she was a Harry Potter fan.
The hardest part Michael, was the hardest part of you working in jail, the Dementors?
I would say it was hard not to bring it home. Not to bring it to the house I lived in with my second wife, who abused me, psychological and verbally. But when you go into the jail, I came in hard because you have. If you come in hard, you can soften up. You can't come in soft and try to toughen up. The inmates will eat you alive and run you out, in no time.
Well, see, and then that's funny because that's the exact opposite of, and I wasn't working in a jail, but how I approach the criminals, because I would come in soft because I can go hard whenever. Like,
right.
I can turn it on. That's easy. But if I came in, like for me, there was no question about who was in control because I just tore down your door. Me and 15 buddies have rifles pointed at you. I put handcuffs on you. I got a warrant that says I can take you to jail. I don't need to now be Mr. Tough Guy because there's no question. I am Mr. Tough Guy. I have the power here. And so if, guys were starting to push back on me, I'm like, I can take it to a degree,
right?
But you're just trying to save face. And I know that's much different than being in the jail.
So in the jail, when you walked into any one pod, you were in there alone with at least 50 other inmates. Okay. Anything from, late on their child support up to capital murder. And your tool belt is officer presence and OC spray. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
And other than that, you have your other officer in the control room supposedly watching you on camera.
But they're not.
You've got a radio, and the thump squad could be there within, I'd say, 30 seconds. But,
yeah.
I mean,
30 seconds, a lot can happen.
That's a lot of beating.
You go to toe-to-toe with someone who's looking at, 3 counts of capital murder.
Yeah, they don't care what happens.
What do they care if they stop an officer? Right.
So the precaution to not bring harm to you is like a luggage padlock, those little tiny ones. Like right. It's just there to keep the honest people from snooping. But if somebody wants to bring it, they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have a moment when you were working where it was really hard for you because you were going maybe up against a young kid that you knew had done wrong, but it was a child, it was a younger kid?
Well, we worked with young kids mainly as the victims. So whether they were the victims of sexual assault or they were the teenage prostitutes that were convinced we're trying to separate them from the love of their life because this is the only adult who's ever shown them love, but it's manipulation. Yeah, but it's more than that. It's these pimps knew what to say. Yeah. So it's easy because these girls needed something to fill in their life, and on top of that, these guys knew from experience what they're supposed to say and do, and they could get in very simple. So now we're ruining their life. So yeah, I don't think there's
gang initiation, the younger guys trying to get in. And
yeah, by the time we got involved, I mean, these were gang members who were further along. And so I hadn't been privileged to see anything about the initiations. There were some younger kids involved sometimes. We had one 16-year-old Latin king who was a driver for a dope deal in Chicago. And by the time we jumped out and pointed rifles at everybody, I was a newer agent. They go, "Hey man, take this kid and start interviewing, see what he knows. And when I asked him his name, he says, I need to use the bathroom. And I said, yeah. Let's get on with the name first. And he's like, I need to use the bathroom. And I said, I need you to give me your name. And he said, do you have any napkins? So we had made a young kid shit himself. So there was that.
Wow.
So, I mean, he's a hardened gangster out there ready to
Right.
kill. But when 12 guys jump out with rifles, then the
Everything
body does what
changes.
it does.
Yeah. Yes.
We talk a lot about on our show about narcissists, and it sounds like your pimps here were grade A narcissists.
They're very charismatic. They know what the individual needs to hear, and they say it to lure them in and keep them. It's
Well,
like getting their claws into their web.
Yeah.
Right. And part of their culture is the promotion and the glorification of being able to control a young woman. Or, I mean, it could be an adult woman too, but being able to do that shows how much more of your man. And it's different than any type of manosphere that we see now online. I mean, this was very specific to how you are great based on how large your stable is, whether you're able to control girls with violence or not. It's pretty gross.
Yes. So if anyone wanted to find where you are or learn more about you, where do we go? Because I want to make sure we have everything in the notes as well.
Oh, I'm in my basement right now, so you can definitely find me there.
I wouldn't want to try to find them. Booby trap.
No, yeah, online. Oh, okay. So you can find me on Instagram at _Eric_Robinson, which I was amazed wasn't taken.
Right?
And yeah. And on LinkedIn, it's my name, Eric Robinson. And I don't know how LinkedIn works, but if you search FBI with it too, I'm sure you'll find me and you'll see this lovely face. No shirtless.
No shirtless, not yet.
Are you doing video now?
Again, it's just audio, but we're seeing his face.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for letting us see the man behind the badge. And, well, he has his shirt on, so we don't get to
His wife's not there.
Oh, stop it. Oh, my gosh. Seriously? You could take us out since you brought us in. You do it so well. Go ahead. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. And I mean it. Stand by for just a second.
Yeah, we'll get those links for you. And we'll help promote your book when it does come out in
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'd love to have you back again.
I'm around and we'll have a good time just like this one.
Yes, 100%.
Thank y'all for listening to Unstoppable with Victoria, our special guest, Eric Robinson, and me. Just me.
The redneck.
Right. Just me. I'm like the dogs down here. I'm just here.
No, they're obedient.
Really?
Yep.
And with that, y'all, good night.